another episode of It's My Optometry Business. I'm your host, Hannah Cho, a fellow optometrist helping private practices thrive. I know that some people are looking into telehealth and you actually don't get too much reimbursement for that. Reflect on your own practice right now. If a patient wanted to order 6 months of contact lenses, how does that typically go? Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of This is My Optometry Practice with Dr. Hannah Cho, which is me. I just wanted to start off this episode with talking more about the more practical tips. So I think the main thing that most of the owners are primarily concerned about right now is basically that their income has severely decreased. How are they going to survive this time when they're not really allowed to make money off of their bread and butter, which is typically seeing eye exams, the comprehensive eye exams, and then after that we do sales of glasses and contact lenses. With all that off the table, what are we supposed to do now? I know that some people are looking into telehealth and they're seeing patients over teleconferencing and doing exams, like medical focused exams, very limited exam actually. And what I've heard and what I've seen is that you actually don't get too much reimbursement for that. So it's a lot less than what we are used to for a comprehensive eye exam. And yes, there's a few pros to it. Number one, you're doing it remote, so it doesn't require you to travel. So it does take a lot less effort to do it. Number two, patients are more accessible to you more easily and readily, especially in this pandemic. But the con of that is that when you do get the reimbursement, it's very small compared to what you're used to. Not only that, a lot of patients aren't looking to get those kind of exams done. If they had a choice, obviously they would want the comprehensive, or they would want to get their contact lens prescription updated so that they can get their contact lenses. And with that even said, there's a lot of kind of gray area right now because we are in a state of emergency. A lot of optometrists I know are actually extending the lifetime of their contact lens prescriptions so that they can purchase contact lenses because it is an emergency. So with that said, I don't think that this kind of telehealth exam is something that can really make up for the loss of income. And I think I want to preface this part by saying that I'm not trying to argue that we're trying to make as much income as possible during this time of emergency. I know that there's a lot more important things to think about. There's a lot of people that are hurting and going through a lot of trauma at this point, and there's a lot of frontline workers that are going in there, basically risking their lives to help stop this pandemic and to be there for people that need help. And there's a lot of people dying from this virus. I don't want to minimize what's going on, but what I'm trying to do in my own small part is to help those that are kind of stressed out about the current state and the lack of income, and just to give them some other options or some other business ideas that they can utilize and implement during this time, because we're not really sure. No one can really predict when this will kind of go back to normal. And even by normal, it's not that, let's say the quarantine has been lifted. I doubt that it's going to go right back to how it was before this pandemic. So I think for me personally, and all of this is obviously from my own personal standpoint, it's not, just take it with a grain of salt is what I'm saying. So all the stuff that I'm thinking and I'm brainstorming, it all comes out of, my head as an optometrist that is more focused on the business side of it. So yeah, take it for what it's worth. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to implement it. But just think of this as another point of view, and, maybe it will give you guys some ideas to kind of jump off of. So sorry, that was a really long introduction. So sorry about that. Let me just kind of talk about what I wanted to talk about. So a couple of things that crossed my mind when I was thinking about this for the past few weeks, and I had a lot of time to reflect on, what part of optometry can continue without having patients physically there at the office, and what can we provide to patients that they actually need at this point. Because the last thing you want to do is come off as someone that's trying to make money off of people, because number one, that's not something that I'm interested in doing. It's always going to be in the best interest of the patient. I think that's kind of where I kind of set my guideline, and everything stems from there. So it's always going to be good for the patient. So the one idea that I had was a lot of patients actually are running out of contact lenses. And yes, we can try to convince patients that, hey, maybe wearing glasses will be safer. There's, you guys are optometrists, so you understand why, like the logistical side of it, it just makes more sense. It's more sanitary to wear glasses at this point. But a lot of patients don't really want to wear glasses for whatever reason. It's more uncomfortable for some patients. It's some of the reasons I hear. Some patients like the freedom of being able to see a wider field of view, that kind of stuff. So for the patients that need contact lenses, I do think it's important to let the patients know that they can continue to purchase contact lenses from your office. And I think one part, and I've said this in the introduction podcast, but for some reason, optometry is so behind on things technologically driven. So for example, like contact lenses is not something that most practices have access given to patients to purchase readily. And what I mean by that is reflect on your own practice right now. If a patient wanted to order 6 months of contact lenses, how does that typically go? So I'll give you an example of what I guess an average optometry office, private practice optometry office in America does now for contact lens purchases. So before this whole pandemic happened, a patient would go in, they would get a contact lens exam, the doctor would finalize the prescription, and then they would go out to the optical, and then, the handoff. So the doctor would tell the optician or the receptionist, whoever, what they would recommend and which prescription was finalized. And then the patient would have the ability to purchase up to an year's supply of contact lenses. And then the optician or the receptionist would go over the price per box, the rebate if applicable, and then the net amount that they would have to pay out of pocket for now, minus insurance allowance if you guys take insurance. So that's typically how it went. After that, the optician or the receptionist would go ahead and place an order on whatever distributor you guys chose to work with. And then the turnaround time would depend on how quickly it was in stock and how it would be shipped out from the distributor. So it could either be shipped directly to the office or to the patient. So we're looking at about maybe at the soonest 2 to 3 days, up to a week if it goes to the patient's home address. So home address. I don't know why I keep saying address. So that's typically how it looks like. But now in the pandemic, try to imagine, because I want you guys to put yourselves in your patient's shoes. If you wanted to buy something from, let's say, Amazon, let's take contact lens out of the picture for now. Let's say you have to, so I guess something comparable is medicine. Let's say you had a telehealth exam with your provider, your doctor, and they prescribed a prescription. Now, let's say that you had to call in the prescription to the pharmacy. They had to place an order, and then you had to pay everything over the phone, and then it was shipped to you maybe a week later. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think, even that is kind of hard to compare it to because it's not really the same. What would be a good example? But do you guys know what I'm trying to get at? Like, it's so inconvenient for patients to get to the product that they need in their hands. And usually when patients want contact lenses, you guys know as well as I do, they're always on their last pair and they've already extended the wear of it for like a month. And so they're always desperate. It's always an emergency. And in that situation, the patient is really wanting something right away. And for some reason, we've kind of trained them to have to wait, a week or a week and a half sometimes. If I were a patient and I wanted contact lenses, the first place I would go to is probably not the private practice office, unfortunately. And it's because it's so inconvenient. And not only do we have to somehow catch one of the live receptionists or the optician on the phone, then we have to place an order, use our credit card, and then we have to wait for the shipment to come to our house. We have to verify the shipping address. And so for me, it's always been, why can't there be something that's more automated that patients can do on their own time? Because I don't know about you guys, when I have to call in, it's a whole ordeal. I have to find a time when it's quiet because I have two girls and they're pretty loud all the time. Go to a quiet space. I have to actually sometimes even schedule it into my calendar. So let's say I have a lunch break with my girls because we're homeschooling right now, like everyone else is, and I have to be able to sit down, type in the phone number, and it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but just the thought of having to call someone to place an order for something, it does take a chunk of our time and effort. And it's just such a big obstacle because we're so trained as a whole nowadays that we can just place something online without having to call in, and there's no there's no interaction with anyone. Everything we can do on our own time. We can do it at 3 in the morning if we really wanted to, and place the order, double check that the prescription is correct, double check that the shipping address is correct. Sometimes you don't even need to input your credit card number because you can link it to, let's say, your Amazon account, or you have all the credit card numbers stored in, like, let's say, Apple Pay or something like that. So it's so convenient. And so why can't we do that for our private practices? So that's one of the ideas that I thought would be great for this kind of time right now. And I've actually been working on something like this personally for my own practices. The good thing is I do have some developers working with me, and we were able to create something. There's probably some contact lens system out there. I know that there's a couple of programs, one I've heard of that's specifically for processing contact lens orders. So, and it's similar to the software that I made. It's basically, we're trying to contact all the patients that are almost out of their contact lenses because they expire after a year, and typically you'll have a transaction history of if they didn't buy an annual supply, right? So like you can probably look up everyone that bought 6 month supply, 3 month supply, and calculating it based on when they purchased, you can kind of estimate about when they would run out of their contact lenses. And my idea was to shoot out a reminder and say, hey, your contact lens supply is almost out. Do you want to reorder? And it's the ability to provide them with a payment link or some way that they can place an order that's already been pre-approved on the doctor's office side, so that they don't have to call in or they don't have to look for their contact lens prescription and try to upload that. It's the convenience factor, and the benefit that I think the private practice has is that they do have that record of that contact lens prescription. So there's no added step that the patient has to go through to purchase contact lenses. So after that, you would send like a payment link, they would place an order, and then my software, we actually integrated with ABB Concise because that's the one that I typically use for most of my orders. And they would place an order, there would be a tracking number that would be sent to the patient so that they could keep track of their order, because I think most of the phone calls that we get actually personally is updates. So not only is it contact lenses, it's also glasses, like where are my glasses, how far is it? And I think if we can somehow provide a tracking number that the patient can check on themselves, it would actually reduce a lot of the work for the receptionist or whoever is handling all of your phone calls to a minimum. So that's one idea that I think would be great, because patients need contact lenses, they're going to run out, and who better to buy it from than from the private practice that gave them that prescription in the first place. And if you can make it very convenient, and if you can price it out fairly, I feel like there's really no reason why they wouldn't buy it from you. And not only that, a lot of the rebates that we have as private practices are typically as good, if not better, than a lot of the other websites, and a lot of times the patients are actually in network with us, and so they're able to utilize a larger allowance than, let's say, anyone that's out of network. So that's something to think about. The second thing that I have been thinking heavily about is, so with contact lenses comes glasses, right? So with glasses, again, we're at a standstill. For those that don't have anything on e-commerce or like a website where they're selling their glasses, no way are you going to be able to sell your glasses, because they need to be fitted in person. You need to have the patient come in to see your glasses selection. There's really no way for patients to even browse through your glasses. And I'm talking about the average private practice in America right now before this pandemic. There is no other option. And I think that's definitely something that we're missing heavily, because when you look at all the other retail stores, and for me, it's not that I'm trying to become a better private practice than, let's say, another optometry office, whether it be corporate or whatever. It's actually comparing it to kind of the retail giants. So what I'm looking at is like Apple and Amazon and all those other larger companies. I'm not trying to get a little bit better, like 5% better. I'm trying to get as good and as convenient as these other retailers, because at the end of the day, yes, optometry is a healthcare industry. However, for most private practice owners, you guys are very aware, sometimes painfully, that we do have a whole retail component in it. And the unfortunate thing is, a lot of optometrists kind of bury their heads on the ground and they're focused at patient care, which they're amazing at. But I think the problem comes when they don't pay attention to the retail side. And that's kind of where a lot of the profits can be generated. And that's where, if you do 20% of your effort, that can potentially be 80%, that 20-80 rule, that 80% of your profit. I'm not going to go too much into that, because obviously there's a lot of modalities out there, and there's doctors that practice specialty care, and obviously that's going to be the way opposite. But even them at this point, they're not able to generate income, because again, it comes down to the patient to doctor face forward, what am I trying to say? Facing forward interaction, which we're not able to do. So right now I'm just kind of thinking about what can be done when we can't be seeing our patients physically. So the e-commerce site kind of goes hand in hand with having an omni-channel. And what omni-channel basically is you're trying to be available in all platforms. And yes, private practice has been traditionally really good about having a retail space in person. But I think with the onset of this pandemic, and also kind of where the generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs are going, are that they're becoming more and more adapted to being able to buy everything online and getting it very quickly. So if you can just be consumer focused, think about where the consumers are at this point, where they're going to be in 10, 20 years. I think you're going to be fine. I think we're going to thrive. We're going to survive. But if you're trying to just focus in on having a practice viable for the next few years, 5 years, I do feel like you're going to miss out, and it's not going to be good for that practice. So for the e-commerce site, what I've been doing is I've been developing a website and basically trying to put all the frames that I have onto that website. So it's a stock image, right? So you don't have to take pictures, because most of the frame companies already have really nice images that they paid a ton of money for that we can use. And then basically create an online store where you can buy glasses. And again, the benefit for us as private practice owners is that we have all the information. We have all the prescription already finalized. We have that information. So on top of that, a lot of times we also even have the PD, the pupillary distance of that patient. So how easy is it for us to place an order? When the patients are trying to purchase glasses from, let's say, Warby Parker, boo, or any of the other corporate offices, they have to find, the patient has to find their prescription, or they have to contact the private practice or wherever they went, find a copy of it and have it sent to them. So us as a private practice owner that are seeing all these patients, we should take advantage of the fact that we have this upper hand in convenience, that we can fill orders for the patients. We shouldn't be missing the mark on this. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm super passionate about this part because I feel like we're missing out on so much because for some reason optometrists are so scared or don't want to be seen as, you know, like Warby Parker. But there are some things that Warby Parker, as much as I don't like them, that they're doing well and that we should be implementing into our own practices. So yes, I'm going to be putting up our frames that we have in our store, categorize it so we can actually keep track of all the things that are being sold, all the data, all the colors and stuff like that, and have a way that the patient can purchase online. And not only that, I think the one hurdle that I get a lot from doctors are, well, if we sold it online, like how are they going to know if it fits, or how are they going to know if they like it, or, you know, what if it doesn't work out? That's just going to be a redo for me. I do feel like that is kind of, just have to cut it as a loss. That's going to be the price of business. At the beginning, it will be harder because we're going to not be used to it, but there is a virtual try-on you can plug and play, and it's not ideal. And to be very honest, I do feel like there's got to be a better way to do it. We need to get some developers in here and just make it look much more realistic. But what is available to us now, it's not too bad. So it's basically like a virtual mirror, and the patients try on the glasses and see how it is. The only caveat is that the frames that these softwares have are typically bestsellers and not necessarily the ones that you have or are selling in your store. For me personally, I don't carry anything that is popular. I like staying and supporting independent frame lines because that's kind of what private practice is. We're boutique-y, we're high quality patient care. We're all about what's not readily available and what I think is better quality and craftsmanship. So with that said, a lot of these frames are not available, but it's not that it's impossible to add it in. It just takes a little bit more time. And so we're going to set that up. We're going to roll out basically this online e-commerce store for patients to try out glasses and then purchase on the website. And it's going to be a test for sure. But the cool thing is, once we have that data on how many of our patients are interested in this kind of modality, how many frames can we sell, and how would this compare to, let's say, all those patients that would normally purchase in the store, and how many of these patients are we capturing that would normally have walked out of the store and bought it elsewhere because, again, for the convenience factor. So it is definitely testing ground, but if you guys are interested, go ahead and shoot me an email. I have a few emails that I check, but the one that you can send it to me is idoccho@gmail.com. That's EY. I'll just list it somewhere on this podcast link. And well, I just realized it's a podcast, so you guys can't really see. So it's idoccho@gmail. That's EYEDOCCHO@gmail.com. And let me know if you guys are interested. I'm the type of person that wants to make sure that everything is good before I share it with other doctors. So I will be testing it out on my own, and we're only going to be doing it on one frame line for now because I do feel like the time is ticking and we are losing potential profit every day that we're not actually offering the service to patients. So let me know if you guys are interested in that. But I think those are two things that can help with the profits that we might not be getting at this point quickly. Hopefully that sentence made sense. Basically, all the profit that we're losing at this point, we're trying to make available and to remind patients that, hey, we still have this available to you. And we're actually trying out new technology to see if it's it's something that you guys are interested in. So it doesn't hurt. If anything, it does make you guys seem more technologically advanced, which is always going to be a great thing, because you want to be that office that offers the best and the most convenient methods for all of your patients. That's it for me today. I am just thinking a lot about what to offer you guys and what you guys might feel is valuable. I know that somebody has mentioned that I should talk about marketing. Marketing is a huge topic, and I think a lot of people don't realize that marketing is different from sales, which is different from branding, and all of them is under the umbrella of, I guess it's marketing, but there's a lot of subcomponents of it. So just want to know if you guys had anything specific that you can think of. Go ahead and shoot me an email. If having like practical tips like this, like the stuff that I talked about today, that's actionable and you can actually execute, if that's more helpful, let me know. Because for me personally, I don't really like hearing, good ideas in general unless there's actual next steps that I can take. So with that said, I guess I'll talk to you guys at the next podcast. This has been really fun for me actually, and I'm just having a blast brainstorming, and this has given me a lot of stuff to think about besides just homeschooling and kids. It's kind of getting me back into that business mindset and kind of waking my excitement up, I guess, because this is what I really love doing, and I have a huge passion for anything business related, anything private practice supporting. I am all for it, if you guys don't know. So I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you. Bye.